The wind came fast, sweeping across Painted Mesa like a train that had jumped its track, ferocious, sudden, and cold enough to burn. Samantha Avery had been through blizzards before, but this one hit like a punch to the gut. From the shelter of her off-road camper truck, she tightened the collar of her parka and raised her camera, peering through the lens at the shapes moving in the whiteout. The Mustang herd had huddled together in a tight circle, their rumps to the wind, their heads down against the stinging snow. But one horse stood apart. Sam adjusted the focus. It was her, the buckskin mare she'd been tracking for days. Luna, proud, wary, and impossibly graceful. Sam had seen her signs, the restless circling, the swollen belly, the way she'd drifted from the herd. She was close to foaling. Too close. Not now, Sam muttered. Not in this. The snow thickened, blurring the edges of everything. She could barely make out Luna's golden coat as the mare turned in slow circles, her head low, breath visible in the frozen air. Sam gritted her teeth. She wanted to help. Every instinct screamed at her to climb out of the truck, to offer warmth, anything. But the law was clear, no interference. Wild horses were protected, and any contact could mean fines, even jail. Still, she couldn't look away. Through her lens, she watched as Luna dropped to the snow-covered earth. The labor was long, brutal. The wind screamed around them as Luna bore down, hooves digging into the ground, her body shaking with the effort. Sam's breath fogged the viewfinder. She captured everything, every tremble, every desperate push, every low, guttural grunt from the mare fighting nature's cruel timing. And then it happened. The colt emerged, limp and still, a pale buckskin with darker legs and a blaze down his nose. Sam felt a surge of hope, and then dread. The foal didn't move, didn't lift his head, didn't even twitch. "Come on, little guy," she whispered. Luna spun around and immediately began licking him, nuzzling his tiny body, trying to coax life into those legs. She pawed gently at the snow around him, clearing space, creating warmth the only way she knew how, with her body. An hour passed, then another. The colt, Sam would later name him Sky, remained motionless. The herd had moved on, disappearing into a canyon beyond the ridge where they'd find some shelter. But Luna didn't follow. She stayed. Alone. By dusk, Sam had radioed Cody Becker 3 times. Static. A brief burst of his voice. "Don't do anything stupid, Sam. You can't get involved." "I'm not," she whispered. "Not yet." Darkness settled. The blizzard grew louder than her own heartbeat. Through the night, Sam stayed awake, wrapped in blankets, her fingers stiff, eyes glued to the lens. Luna was still there, standing guard. She shifted her weight over the colt to block the wind. Snow collected on her back like ash on a statue. Every so often, she would nicker softly, bend to nudge him, or circle around as if trying to warm the ground itself. 18 hours. That's how long Sky lay in the snow, not moving, not nursing. By all logic, he should have died, but Luna wouldn't let go, and neither would Sam. Then something shifted. Just after dawn, the snow tapered off. A pale sun bled through the cloud cover, and Luna changed. She stopped trying to wake him. Instead, she stood still, head lifted, ears twitching. She scanned the horizon like she was thinking. "What are you doing?" Sam whispered. Luna turned toward the distant ridgeline, then back to Sky. She circled him once, twice, and then, with incredible care, she bent her neck, slipped her teeth beneath his withers, and began dragging his limp body. Sam's mouth dropped open. "No, you're not," but Luna was. She was trying to move him. It wasn't random. It wasn't frantic. It was strategic. She shifted his position gently, stopped to rest, then tried again, pushing with her shoulder, gripping with her teeth. When that failed, she stood perfectly still, breathing hard, then circled again. Then came the impossible. Luna crouched slightly, lifted Sky's tiny body with a combination of shoulder pressure and her jaw, and balanced him, awkwardly but deliberately, across her back. Sam fumbled with the camera, recording every frame. "She's carrying him," she breathed. She knows she has to find help." She reached for the radio again. Cody, are you there? You're not going to believe this. She's not giving up. She's carrying him." Static. Then Cody's tired voice. "You've got to let nature run its course, Sam." She didn't answer, because Luna had started walking. Step by step, careful and slow, the mare carried her unconscious foal across the snow-covered mesa, away from the place of his birth, toward something only she seemed to understand. Sam grabbed her jacket, her camera, her field pack. She wasn't going to stop her, but she was going to follow and document what just might be the most extraordinary journey of a wild horse's life. The trail Luna carved through the snow was slow and erratic, like a dream half remembered. Sam kept her distance, following on foot, camera slung tight to her chest, breath shallow in the cold morning air. She didn't dare call out, didn't dare interfere. This was Luna's story now. But something in her gut told her. The ending hadn't been written yet. Each step the mare took looked impossible. The foal, Sky, lay limp across her back like a bundle of damp wheat. His head swayed with her movements, his legs dangling off her flanks, but Luna never faltered. She stopped only to listen, to sniff the wind or glance back at the trail. It was as if she was following a memory older than the land itself. By midday, Sam had to pause. Her boots were soaked through. Her fingers had gone numb despite the hand warmers shoved deep into her gloves. But Luna pressed forward, determined. Sam could see it in her body language, the resolve of a mother who refused to bury her child. The mesa sloped downward into a canyon. Sam recognized the terrain. There was a dry creek bed below, and just beyond that, an old wooden corral used decades ago by cattlemen. It had long since fallen into disrepair, but wild horses sometimes sheltered near it. It offered broken fencing and windbreaks of juniper trees. Maybe Luna remembered it from another winter. Maybe instinct guided her. Maybe something else entirely. As they reached the base of the canyon, the wind finally died down. The sun broke through, casting a golden sheen across the icy ground. That's when it happened. Sky twitched. Sam gasped and nearly stumbled in the snow. The foal's hind leg gave a weak jerk. His ear flicked, and then a low grunt vibrated from his throat. Luna stopped walking. She slowly lowered herself to the ground, allowing Sky to slide from her back into the snow. He landed awkwardly, but she nudged him until his legs tucked beneath him. Sam raised her lens. Sky opened one eye, just one, the kind of half-lidded glance that belonged to a soul, teetering between two worlds. "Attaboy," Sam whispered. "You're still here." Luna nickered softly. Sky's ear twitched again. Sam didn't move for a long while. The sun climbed higher. Luna stood over her foal, breathing steady, her body shielding him from the cold. Then Sky lifted his head, wobbling slow, and let it drop against her front leg. Not quite standing, not quite giving up. Sam's radio crackled. "Cody, you still out there?" His voice rasped. "We've got reports of a slide near Willow Ridge. You need to start heading back before it gets worse." "I can't," she said into the mic. "I found them. The colt's alive." "You what?" "He's alive, Cody. He's weak but breathing. The mare carried him down the mesa like a damn pack mule." Silence. Then, "You've got to be kidding. I've got it on film, all of it." Sam lowered the radio and watched as Sky shifted again. His head tilted upward. He tried, God, he really tried, to rise, but his legs folded beneath him like wet sticks. "Come on," she murmured. Luna seemed to understand. She pressed her muzzle to his side and gently nudged him again. Sky tried once more. This time, he got his front legs beneath him. The back legs followed in a clumsy scramble. He stood, barely, and then collapsed. Still, Sam smiled. "He's fighting," she said aloud. Hours passed. Sky tried again and again. Each attempt ended with a tumble, but each one lasted longer than the last. Sam stayed hidden behind the broken corral fence, capturing every moment. Her camera battery died. She swapped it with shaking fingers. She didn't eat, didn't rest, couldn't. Near sunset, she heard hooves. At first, she thought it was the wind tricking her ears. But no, it was real. The unmistakable rhythm of other horses approaching. Sam peeked through the slats in the fence. The herd. They'd found her. Luna lifted her head, ears pricking toward the sound. The Mustangs came slowly, led by a black stallion with a jagged blaze down his nose. Shadow Strike. Sam recognized him from old BLM files. Tough, dominant, not known for gentleness. Sam's heart pounded. Would they accept Luna back, with a foal too weak to run? Or would they move on without her? The stallion stopped a few yards away, snorting, pawing at the frozen dirt. The other mares hung back, eyes wide, uncertain. Luna took one step forward, then another. She nickered low and urgent. Sky, still lying in the snow, raised his head weakly, ears twitching. Shadows Strike sniffed the air. Then, shockingly, he moved closer. Close enough that his breath fogged against Luna's neck. They touched noses. The rest of the herd trickled down the slope, one by one. Sam watched in disbelief as the wild horses encircled Luna and her foal. Not tight, not possessive, but protective. They didn't leave her behind. They welcomed her home. Sam leaned against the old fence post and closed her eyes for just a moment, exhaling the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She pulled the radio to her mouth again. "Cody, you're not going to believe this, but the colt's standing, barely, and the herd—" A rustling in the brush cut her off. She spun around. From the trees behind her emerged a tall figure wrapped in a dark green parka and snow-dusted hat. His beard was longer than she remembered. His eyes were the color of old bark, tough, tired, and watchful. "Cody?" she asked. "Nope," the man said, stepping into view. "Name's Mason, Mason Cole. You the one following the herd?" Sam nodded slowly. "You're trespassing on old Bureau land," he said. Then he squinted toward the Mustangs. "But maybe it's good someone was watching." Mason Cole stood motionless on the edge of the ridge, arms folded tight against the cold, slicing wind. Below, the wild herd moved with cautious grace, each step muffled by a fresh dusting of snow. But it wasn't the stallion or the lead mares that held his focus. It was the foal, Sky. The colt wobbled beside Luna like a newborn deer, legs still unsure, tiny hooves trembling against the crust of ice. Yet, with every falter, Luna pressed close, her flank steadying him like a living wall. "That colt shouldn't be alive," Mason muttered, almost to himself. Sam lowered her camera, the lens fogging from her breath. "I know," she said softly, "but he is." There was awe in her voice. No journalistic detachment, no hardened realism, just awe. The rest of the herd had, surprisingly, accepted Sky, or maybe they'd simply resigned themselves to him. He was no threat, too weak to rival anyone, too innocent to command fear. Even Shadow Strike, The dominant stallion hadn't run him off. Luna never let the colt stray more than a few feet. She acted as shield, mother, and lifeline. Mason narrowed his eyes. You know what this means, right? That mare and foal, they're the key. They prove the herd's adjusting, surviving winter, maybe even thriving. If the Bureau sees this, Sam said, they'll have to back off. No more relocation threats, no forced roundups. Mason's jaw tightened. You put too much faith in people behind desks. Paperwork doesn't care about miracles. I'm not giving them a way out this time, she replied firmly. Not again. For a long moment they said nothing. Then Sky took another step, unsteady, awkward, and breathtaking. He stumbled, almost face first into the snow, but Luna was there, nudging him upright, guiding him as if every inch of her being had been made to keep him alive. Sam raised her camera again. I need more. Footage of him feeding, walking, bonding with the herd. It has to be airtight. Mason gave a short, dry laugh. You really don't want much, do you? Not when it matters. Mason sighed and pulled a battered pair of binoculars from his coat pocket. They move east at dusk, stick to the tree line, then bed down near the old stone wash. He hesitated, then added, If we set up camp there tonight, we'll catch 'em resting. Could get the shots you need. Sam blinked. You're camping with me. Mason shrugged. Someone's got to make sure you don't end up as mountain lion bait, and... He paused, eyes lingering on the foal. It's been a while since I saw something worth fighting for. That night, under a tangle of lodgepole pines, they pitched a rough camp. The wind howled like it had a grudge. The fire sputtered, but Mason passed around a flask that chased the chill straight to the bone. Sam stared into the flames, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. You ever wonder why we do this? She asked. Mason leaned back against a log. Not anymore. I used to think it was about the story, the footage. Now, I just want to believe we haven't broken everything wild, that there's still something honest left. Mason took a pull from the flask, then offered it to her. I get that. She hesitated. I lost my dad. He was a park ranger. Taught me everything I know about patience, about letting nature speak first. Mason looked into the fire like it held old ghosts. I lost a brother, Nevada. He tried to stop a land grab, got chewed up by politics, didn't stand a chance. They sat in silence, the kind that carries weight without words. Somewhere nearby, a coyote called into the void. The trees creaked like they remembered everything. Just before dawn, Sam was jolted awake by the sound of hooves thundering through crusted snow. Not panicked, but urgent. "Mason!" she hissed, grabbing her camera. He was already up, binoculars pressed to his eyes. They're moving, fast. Sam climbed onto a low ridge. The herd was stirring. Trotting, not running. Luna was out front, Sky tucked beneath her. And for the first time, the foal was keeping pace. Not stumbling, not faltering, running, with purpose. Shadow Strike flanked them. Ears pinned forward, muscles taut. A pair of mares closed ranks behind Sky, forming a protective arc. "Get this," Mason said sharply. "This is your miracle." Sam filmed everything. Sky's clumsy gallop, Luna's guiding steps, the herd adapting to protect him. The wind howled around her, but the lens held steady. Every second captured proof. "This changes everything," she whispered. But the moment didn't last. When they returned to pack the camp, Mason knelt near a set of tire tracks. He scowled. "Government issue." BLM. Sam's breath caught. They were here? Looks like they were scouting, and recently. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her camera bag. How would they even know about Sky? Mason stood slowly, his voice dark. Someone told them. Sam stared at him, the color draining from her face. Cody, she whispered. He was the only one I told. Mason didn't curse, but his silence was sharp enough to cut. If they dart the herd, Sam said hoarsely, Sky won't survive relocation. If they don't think he's viable, Mason added, they won't even try. Euthanasia, she finished, sick to her stomach. They packed in silence, urgency pulsing in every motion. Snow started falling again, soft, deceptive, nature's way of hiding trouble until it was too late. Halfway back to the ridge, Sam finally spoke. What do we do now? Mason's voice was low, steady. We call someone they can't ignore. Sam frowned. Who? He glanced at her. The one person who still knows how to fight the system from the inside. And who's that? Mason cracked the faintest of grins. My ex-wife. They rode hard. The wind howled through the canyon like a warning, kicking up snow and dead pine needles as Mason and Sam descended into the lowlands. Sam's fingers were raw from gripping the saddle, her camera bouncing against her chest with every jolt of her horse. Mason said nothing, but the tension in his jaw told her everything. There wasn't time for comfort, not anymore. By the time they reached the old ranger station, the sun had begun to claw its way over the ridgeline, casting long shadows across the frozen ground. The place had been boarded up for years, but Mason still had the key. He didn't explain why, just unlocked the rusted padlock and motioned Sam inside. You sure she'll come? Sam asked as she paced the narrow confines of the ranger cabin. She'll come, Mason said, removing his gloves with deliberate care. She hates the BLM more than I do, and she's smarter than all of them combined. Sam raised an eyebrow. That's not saying much. A dusty laugh escaped Mason's throat. Jenna Cole doesn't bluff. She gets judges to blink. When she says something's worth fighting for, people listen. An hour later, a dark SUV pulled up outside the cabin. Sam was already at the window. That her? Mason nodded. Brace yourself. Jenna Cole stepped out of the vehicle like a woman with no time to waste. Tall, lean, dressed in black denim and a snow-dusted trench coat, she looked more like someone headed into court than the wilderness. But her boots were scuffed, and her eyes scanned the horizon like she'd grown up tracking coyotes. She entered without knocking. Mason, she said curtly, you look worse than I remember. He smirked. Missed you, too. Her eyes shifted to Sam. You're the filmmaker? Documentarian, Sam corrected. Samantha Ellery. Jenna dropped her coat on a hook. You've stirred up a hornet's nest. The Bureau's on high alert. They filed for an emergency removal permit this morning. Sam paled. Already? They don't move that fast unless someone lights a fire under them, Jenna said. You were right, someone leaked it. Probably that intern you mentioned, Cody? Mason frowned. Why would he do that? Politics, pressure, fear, maybe just plain stupidity. Doesn't matter. What matters is that Foal's got a death sentence hanging over his head unless we get ahead of it. Jenna pulled out her laptop and a battered legal folder. I'll file a restraining injunction today. You've got footage? Sam handed over her SD cards. Multiple angles, herd behavior, the foal nursing, walking, interacting. It's undeniable. Jenna plugged in and began watching, her face unreadable. But when she saw the clip of Sky running beside Luna, awkward, wobbly, but determined, her fingers paused on the keyboard. This could work, she said softly. Could? Sam echoed. They'll challenge it. Say it's emotionally manipulative, not scientific data, but I can argue precedent. I've stopped removals before on less. Sam's voice cracked. You think we can save him? Jenna looked her in the eye. If we move fast, And if you're willing to go public. Public? I mean press, networks, conservation blogs, social media. You can bet BLM already has their version of the story. You need to drown it. Mason leaned forward. She's right. It's not just about the foal anymore. It's about the people watching. Sam's throat was dry, but she nodded. Okay, whatever it takes. Jenna snapped her laptop shut. Then saddle up. They'll move on the herd within 48 hours, less if they skip protocol. By the time they reached the canyon rim again, storm clouds were gathering. Sam set up her camera in the exact spot she had before, heart thudding. Below, the herd remained clustered near the stone wash. Luna lay curled in the snow, Sky nestled close. He looked stronger, thinner maybe, but upright, alert. Then the chopper came. At first it was just a hum, distant, low, like a wasp caught under glass. But it grew fast, echoing off the canyon walls. The herd stirred, heads lifting, ears twitching. "No," Mason whispered, "not this fast." The helicopter crested the ridge, dull gray with a white Bureau of Land Management seal near the tail. A darting crew was visible inside, 3 men, scoped rifles ready. "They're going for it," Jenna said flatly. Sam's camera was rolling, but her hand shook. Below, Shadow Strike reared and bolted, the rest of the herd breaking in a panicked blur. Luna tried to rise, but Sky was slow. Too slow. "They'll target him," Jenna growled. "He won't outrun a dart." Without thinking, Mason grabbed the flare gun from his saddlebag and loaded it. "Mason, don't," Jenna started. He fired. A red streak arced across the sky, exploding in front of the chopper with a brilliant flash. The aircraft veered sharply, pulling back from the canyon rim. "Jesus," Sam breathed. Mason didn't lower the gun. "I've got 3 more. They try that again. I'll light up their windshield." Jenna grabbed his arm. "One felony at a time, cowboy." Down below, Luna had gotten Sky on his feet. He staggered, but he ran. Short, bounding strides that somehow kept him upright. The herd swarmed around him, pushing him forward. Sam was crying now, but her camera never blinked. That night, back at the cabin, Jenna filed the injunction by satellite. "I added the helicopter incident to the complaint," she said. "They fired darts at an injured juvenile without a viability assessment. That's a procedural violation." Mason poured a cup of black coffee, his hand still trembling from adrenaline. "You think they'll back down?" "No," Jenna said, "but they'll pause, and that buys us time." Sam stood quietly by the window, staring into the dark trees. "Do you think he'll make it?" Jenna didn't answer right away. "I think he already has. That colt's not just surviving. He's proving everything they said was impossible." Mason came to stand beside her. "You gave him a name. That means something." Sam didn't look away from the trees. "Sky, because he was born under a storm. Because he might just rise above all of this." Silence settled over the room, heavy but no longer hopeless. In the distance, coyotes howled, but for once, it didn't sound like mourning. It sounded like warning, and maybe, just maybe, like a call to arms. A soft haze blanketed Morgan Ranch as dawn crept in, spilling golden light over frost-tipped grass and quiet fences. The storm was long gone, but the silence it left behind still lingered. A different kind of storm was coming now, one made of memory, emotion, and quiet goodbyes. Helen Morgan crouched beside the young foal, her fingers working gently to remove the final strip of bandage from Sky's leg. He didn't flinch, just stood there, stronger now, eyes wide with curiosity. His frame had filled out in the past weeks, though he still walked with a tentative gait. But it was no longer weakness. It was caution, born of survival. That's the last one, sweetheart, Helen murmured, smoothing the soft fur beneath the bandage. Sky flicked his ears and turned toward his mother, Luna. She stood just beyond the fence line, proud and still, her coat gleaming under the morning light like it had never been broken by winter or pain. Sam Avery watched from a few feet away, camera in hand but lowered. She wasn't filming right now. Some moments were too sacred to capture without permission. Luna looked back at her, long, steady, and unblinking. In that gaze was something more than recognition. It was farewell. Eli Morgan stepped closer to Sky and leaned in, voice rough but warm. "You were born in a storm, kid," he whispered, "and you came out stronger than the wind." Sam blinked fast and raised the camera again. A pickup truck crunched to a halt near the paddock. The BLM team had arrived. Dr. Ryan Blake and Dr. Hartman stepped out, carrying lightweight tracking collars. No tranquilizers, no containment, just a final step before letting go. "You sure you're ready for this?" Dr. Blake asked quietly. Sam nodded. "They are. I just hope we are too." Dr. Hartman handed her a tablet. A map displayed real-time data with 2 blinking signals, already paired and ready. "This isn't the end of a story," he said. "It's the beginning of a study. She's going to teach us more than we ever imagined." The collar was placed gently around Luna's neck. A second, smaller one was fitted to Sky. Neither resisted. The gate creaked open. Luna stood at the threshold, muscles tense but eyes calm. She looked back once, at Helen, at Eli, at Sarah, and at Sam. Then she stepped forward. Sky hesitated. His tiny hooves dug into the earth as he turned back one last time. His gaze passed over each of them, like he was memorizing the people who had saved his life. Then came the sound. A soft whinny from his mother, not urgent, just waiting. Sky stepped out of the paddock. They climbed the hill together, the wind lifting Luna's mane like a banner. At the crest, Luna paused and let out a quiet call, something between a breath and a hymn. Sky looked back, his ears twitching, and then he ran. Not with grace, not yet, but he ran, with purpose, with joy. Sam captured it all. Her hands shook, and tears slipped down her cheeks. This is what wild means," she whispered into the mic. "Not distance, but freedom with memory." 6 months later. In a climate-controlled lab deep in Utah, Dr. Blake stared at the monitor. 2 glowing blips blinked steadily on the digital map, moving through the Painted Mesa region. "Still together," he murmured. "They've joined a herd," Dr. Hartman added, adjusting the zoom. "Luna's at the front, Sky's learning fast, smarter than average for his age." Blake smiled. "She's not just surviving, she's leading." That fall, in a packed screening room at the Environmental Film Festival in Denver, the documentary Carried Through the Storm played before a breathless crowd. On screen, Luna stood on a snowy ridge, looking out over the land as her foal ran to catch up. The frame stilled as the credits rolled. The audience stood in silence, some wiping tears. A man in the back whispered, "I'll never think of wild horses the same way again." The film made waves. Sam's article, Lessons from Luna, was published in scientific journals and shared in university classrooms across the country. Professors used it to teach ecology, animal behavior, and even ethics. From that momentum, a nonprofit was born, the Luna and Sky Trust, dedicated to protecting wild horse habitats and funding behavioral research. Schools, sanctuaries, and communities reached out, asking for Sam to speak. She did. At high schools, town halls, and conservation centers, Sam stood in front of students and told the story of trust and survival. "What a wild horse taught me," she'd say, "is that trust is built in silence, And sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we don't try to control. One night, Sam sat alone in her small office, the soft hum of her computer echoing in the background. On her screen, a GPS signal moved steadily across the digital desert. Luna, another dot, smaller and faster, circled close beside her. Sky. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like an echo, and Sam's voice narrated her final recording. Sometimes the wild doesn't run from us. Sometimes it walks toward us, carrying everything it loves on its back.